Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while, something that's very impactful in the gaming world. It's pretty much the top driving force for video game innovation, and that is mods, the game modding community. And you might be thinking, well, Level Cap, that's kind of a big subject. Why exactly are you making a video about modding in general? And a lot of that has to do with playing Battlefield 1 right now and playing a lot of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which came from a mod, and wishing that Battlefield supported mods, because there's so many cool things that I think the community could do with the Frostbite engine, Battlefield 1 specifically, yet we're not really able to because Battlefield hasn't supported modding since pretty much Battlefield 2. And unfortunately nowadays it's really not that uncommon for a AAA developer to not build in mod support for their games. Blizzard's pretty notorious for not having a lot of modding options on their titles. I mean, StarCraft and Warcraft have been the only games that have allowed modding, and yet from those titles we've gotten Dota 2, and from Dota 2 we've gotten League of Legends. Some of the biggest games in the entire world came from allowing modding in a Blizzard game. And even though Dota was built up within the Blizzard community, the game was not ever owned by Blizzard. In fact, Valve ended up buying the rights to the game. And this is something where I think Valve is superior to any other AAA publisher out there in that they have unparalleled support of the modding community. And not only has it paid off, but 5 of the top most popular games on Steam right now actually have mod origins. The number 1 game on Steam, which is in fact Dota 2, obviously came from a mod as we just discussed, but right below that at number 2 is Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This game started off in 1999 as a mod. Valve quickly acquired the title and started producing Counter-Strike under the Valve brand. And so almost 2 decades ago, Valve was on top of the modding community, recognizing good game developers, even if they weren't professional game developers at that point, and giving them the support and tools that they needed to make a kick-ass title. And the fact that Counter-Strike is still going strong today, almost 2 decades later, is a real testament to supporting the modding community. Then we look right below that on the list and we have PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, a recent hit that has skyrocketed in popularity and shows no signs of slowing down. This game was inspired from a mod of a mod. It was basically a mod for the original DayZ mod, and it was so successful and people were so inspired by it that H1Z1, another game further down the list, number 8 there, hired PlayerUnknown as a consultant to help them design the King of the Kill game mode, which basically made H1Z1 popular. And so those 4 games right there are all completely inspired by the modding community. Then we've also got Team Fortress 2 at number 5, which was originally a mod for Quake, and then it was a mod for the Half-Life game engine. Valve got involved, brought the game under their brand, and now it is again a huge title that has been around for a long time. Valve has done an incredible job of not only supporting the modding community, but actually building their empire around it. The beauty of the mod is that it allows a small team of gamers to actually realize their ideas on the back of technology that they really can't afford to build themselves. This makes for faster and more pure development with little risk of financial failure. It's basically just a time investment for the passionate developers. Mods are often guided by singular visions and extreme passion for gaming, and I believe that's why some of the best games were in fact once mods. But Valve aside, why is it that other developers seem to have such an obscure policy toward mod support or mod partnerships? Defense of the Ancients was a mod for Warcraft 3. It was popular enough back in the day that it could have easily become a standalone title with some help from Blizzard. Yet a mod that was developed in 2000 for a Blizzard game remained a mod until 2013. 4 years after League of Legends had already copied the formula to ascend to the top tiers of PC gaming. That's 15 years of Blizzard watching a huge opportunity pass them by, then they release Heroes of the Storm in 2015. It's hard to say how well Heroes of the Storm has done, but it's definitely the small fish in a big pond, especially if you're comparing it to the giants of League of Legends and Dota 2. The irony is that Dota was there for the taking, and now Blizzard is competing with Dota and frankly not doing anywhere near as well. You have to wonder if Warcraft 3 was a Valve game, Valve probably would have snatched up Dota in a year or less, as they did with many of the other popular mods developed on their own engines. Anyway, the point of going into all that history is that I think it paints a pretty clear picture that ignoring the modding community as a developer is at the very least a bit foolish. Even within the Battlefield franchise, the development of Battlefield 2 was largely inspired by the mod for Battlefield 1942 called Desert Combat. This mod turned the World War II setting of Battlefield and made it a modern combat-style game, very similar in many ways to what Battlefield 2 was. It even had an AC-130 that was actually player-controlled, and yes, it was overpowered as heck. DICE ended up acquiring the indie studio responsible for Desert Combat and used them to help design Battlefield 2. Now, Battlefield 2 was a phenomenal success for the franchise, and it also supported mods. One particularly popular mod for Battlefield 2 was called Project Reality. This game actually came out with its own standalone title eventually. Apparently the team is now working on Project Reality 2, and there's another game called Squad, which is in early access on Steam. All of this stuff just came from having modding support in Battlefield 2. Now, sadly, after Battlefield 2, mod support pretty much died off, or rather was stomped out completely by the lack of mod support once the Frostbite engine took over. When asked about why Battlefield no longer supported modding, the answers changed over the years. One response was that the Frostbite engine was too complicated for modders to work with. Another response was that EA was afraid hackers would exploit the engine to develop better cheats for the game. The most recent thing that I heard personally is that the engine is broken up into many branches internally, and that creating a mod for the game would require a complex integration of all those branches, which just really isn't possible for the outside user. And although I don't really understand what all that means, it does sound like it could be too difficult to mod, which is just so damn unfortunate, especially when we have titles like Battlefield 1 that are just begging to be modded. Gamers like myself that aren't particularly impressed with the way that Battlefield 1 turned out can easily see ways of creating game modes and modifications to the basic system that could be a great way for the community to create the game they want from the building blocks DICE has provided. Mods have often increased the lifespan and longevity of any title. Now, whenever I hop on to play some Battlegrounds with friends, it's not too long before someone brings up the subject of a Battle Royale game on the Frostbite engine. And I mean, just saying that out loud puts me into a subtle state of euphoria. The mere idea of a DICE production quality game with a Battle Royale game mode is kind of mouth-watering, and it's really fun to fantasize that maybe DICE is working on something like this, but it's also disappointing to think that if the game had mod support, it would almost certainly already be in the game. Imagine Sinai Desert, 64 players, all weapons are pickups, and everyone is playing for themselves. The tools are already in the game engine, it's just waiting for DICE to capitalize on it. Modders have always been much faster to exploit these obvious opportunities, but will DICE eventually have the foresight to do so? Almost all of the other AAA game engines support modding, and not only support it, but encourage it. There's a reason so many titles are coming out now on the Unreal Engine. It's because you can develop on Unreal for free. The Unity engine is also cheap as heck, and Valve basically greenlights any source games these days, so I mean, they're really encouraging their mod community to make anything and everything. With an engine as powerful as Frostbite and using the Battlefield games for basic building blocks, it feels like such an insanely wasted opportunity. Not only could EA secure a guaranteed player base for their games long into their lifespan with a self-regulating modding community, but any mod that becomes an immense success could be gobbled up and released as a standalone title by EA. I mean, they wouldn't be guaranteed the rights to that mod, but it would be an easy transition if the mod already existed within their own gaming engine. It makes very little sense to me why any company would avoid such a big potential market, especially when companies like Valve have been exploiting its power for over a decade, almost 2 decades at this point. I heard that Valve makes more money per employee than any other company in the world. A lot of that, of course, is the ownership of the Steam marketplace, but let's not forget that many of the most profitable titles are games that Valve has directly supported and encouraged through modding. Hopefully some of the other heavy hitters out there will start to catch on, but then again, this whole scene has been going on for so long, especially since Valve jumped on board the modding train, so if they haven't figured it out by now, I guess the question is, will they ever? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little delve into the world of modding history and the incredible success behind it. If you guys could create mods for Battlefield, what would they be? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.